Welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. I'm your host, Ed Brediger. This is part two of a conversation that I had with Ed Essey of Microsoft Corporation. Ed operates the Microsoft Garage, which is a center of innovation and hackership at the company. And we continue our conversation about technology and the world and big business and the future and of innovation. I hope you enjoy it, and please hit the like button and please subscribe to the YouTube version and to the Substack versions so that you can get every bit of these conversations that I have here on the Eddie Network podcast. So here is my continued conversation with Ed Essey.
I had this sort of narrative in my head that uh, that I was building somebody else's vision
Yeah.
instead of my own. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that was interesting is every time I would interview and get another job offer, I'd come back and look at what I had and the people around me, and I would talk to my manager about it, and I would say, like, you know what, I'd rather stay here. I've got this other offer. I'd rather stay here, but I'd rather be working on this, or I see this opportunity to build this instead, or I'd rather work like this. And every time I did that, my manager said, I'd rather you work on that too. And I basically spent that 17 years crafting the perfect job for me.
That's that's fantastic. You were leveraging change to leverage change to get the place that you wanted to do it. And the fact that you could do that within the company itself is the exception to the rule. That's
Yeah.
great.
And
Yeah, that's just yeah.
the thing is, so I've now been at Microsoft over 23 years, and what my job is that, like, I spend my job coaching entrepreneurs. So I view it as my purpose, why I'm in this body on this planet at this time. This purpose of this life is to empower people to know their worth and use their gifts to make meaningful change in the world. And I get to do that. I get to do that every day at Microsoft, working with entrepreneurs. Um, I I actually, uh, as part of my day job, um, I created frameworks and videos coaching people to do it. Like, I coach people constantly on how to do this, and we pulled off all kinds of amazing stuff together. One story I love to tell is about uh, somebody who's now a friend of mine. He had a child who very early on had a stroke and led to cerebral palsy and epilepsy.
Wow.
And uh, him and his wife founded a nonprofit to help everyone who was like his son. And when I met him, uh, and the first time it was virtual, it was because he lives in Milan. Uh, he said, in order to help my son, I realized I have to help everyone like him. And he created a project to help families of children with epilepsy reduce the number and severity of seizures in those children, and has gone on to, although some people, their kids were having between 25 and 50 seizures a night. So imagine what it's like for parents.
Come on.
Like, so it's one thing to be a parent of a newborn and really not get much sleep for 10 months. But imagine being the parent of a child who's having dozens of seizures every single night. They don't sleep, and they don't sleep for over 7 years.
Yeah.
And he was so excited, like, every night that he was having, my son didn't have a seizure. My son didn't have a seizure. And he got up to 500. He got up to 500 nights in a row. He got up to multiple years with technology that he was able to make at the hackathon. And I was his coach, and I helped him get this project out in the market and build a team for it and move it forward. And that's just one of dozens of stories that I've got to help. And I ended up making a course on how to do it. That this is just the transcripts of all the videos that I just printed just to have my own copy of it. Uh, but this can only help people at Microsoft because there's a lot of proprietary stuff in there. So I, if you don't mind that I plug to you that I recently wrote a book that's going to come out next year about how people could be entrepreneurs in their own life. And I paid my own money for this book, and I don't expect to ever recover the money. But my goal is to get it out to people who work in companies so that they could figure out a way to help the company work for them and everybody could win. And my book is called The Inside Job, the Entrepreneur's Toolkit to Mastermind Meaningful Change. And it's a lot smaller than this. I think it's better, and it shows how entrepreneurship is like a heist movie, and it uses this heist movie metaphor to make it just really applicable to people who would never label themselves uh, entrepreneur or innovator. They don't need to know the jargon. It's just stories and practical tips and metaphors to help them.
I totally get it. My whole thing is to encourage and equip people to take personal initiative to create.
Mm.
And what I find is that the structures of where they work really suppress that human desire to take initiative, to create something, to start something. But that when people start doing that, it grants them their life. It becomes the life that they've always wanted to have, but didn't know how to get there. So I think what you're doing is not just a good thing for Microsoft or a good thing for people who have some kind of idea that they want to work on. I think it's essential for the health of our society that we put people in a position where they can take action on the things that matter to them, and they have the support of the companies that they work for to go do that. I mean, you're an example of that, and I think it's really fantastic. And my impression of Microsoft has just gone through the roof now because
Oh,
because of because of your story has shown that there's something within that structure which allows for people to discover it's a trope, but they're inner genius, but it's really discover the inner desire for wanting to be a person of impact. That's really the what I see there. And um, so much of where we are in society is suppressing that kind of desire.
yeah. Y- you worded things very astutely. I picked up on that. You said like the structure is what limits them. It's true because hierarchical structure that came from the military and was brought uh, into the manufacturing industry in the 1950s was designed to eliminate risk from the system or to minimize it, right? Like you want to get to where you have less than three defaults on 1,000 rivets, right? Like that was what hierarchy was designed to do. Hierarchy was not designed to encourage uh, innovation. Uh, so there's this brilliant work by it was by John Cotter, a Harvard HBS guy who realized that
Yes.
what innovative companies had is a different operating system than a hierarchy. And said like startups have this, and the companies that take off have this, which is a network where a group of people without hierarchy are organized, like self-organized by knowing each other around a shared big opportunity. And then what happens is the hierarchy comes in when an opportunity uh, needs to basically grow up because they have stakeholders that they need to be accountable to. And what ends up happening over the time is you lose leadership, you get more structure, but you start as you lose leadership, you start becoming more like bureaucratic. Uh, you're reliable, but you become more bureaucratic. And even though you are well run to some example of well run, you're not you're not nimble anymore. You're not fast anymore. And what he says you need to do is bring that back in. So if your company could have two operating systems, you could do really well. Now, the second thing you said that I thought was really nuanced, when you brought in structure, again, you didn't say the structure could allow them to do that. You said there's something within the structure that could allow them to do that.
Mhm.
And what that is within the structure, like those are the people. And so Sa- Satya, our CEO, he talks all the time about making Microsoft work for you. And we are a company of people that care about that. We are arguably one of the top philanthropic companies in the world. In fact, people always throw around like what number Bill Gates is on the world's richest people because he was the number one richest person in the world for a while. But they don't point out that he's donated away more money than his current net worth. Um,
Yeah,
and in fact, I remember the one year he gave away 42 billion that year. Like it's insane. And so, but that attracted a certain type of people to the company. Uh, and Microsoft has for years matched dollar for dollar every donation that people make to nonprofit organizations. There is a cap, but like
sure.
there's also for every hour they match that with $25 on the hour. Now, that is something that attracts a certain type of people to work in the company and a certain type of leadership to work in the company as well. And that amount of humanity that exists in a different in addition to the structure, I think is a big part of what allows this this network operating system to still exist in the company. And I dare say I like to hope that the hackathon is a big part of that also, because the hackathon sort of levels the playing field. You could have a CVP and an intern on a team, and the intern could be leading the team. And I've seen this happen. Uh,
Are they, is this hackathon just for Microsoft employees?
it's largely for Microsoft employees, but we have a number of external opportunities. So, um, of course, interns is one, but they are employees during that time. But we also bring in customers who we work with, and so customers come in. We have an education component to the hackathon, so students and teachers are brought in to work on that. We work with nonprofits, so there's a big part. There's one of our challenges of the hackathon. We divide it into we have all of these executive challenges around between 30 and 40. And one of them is Hack for Good with a nonprofit. So nonprofits can come in and work with Microsoft employees. And we also have Hack for Positive Impact entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs that have double and triple bottom lines can work with Microsoft on uh, to create like a a self-sustainable impact mission.
That's fascinating. I'm just uh, blown away by what you all are doing, and that story is not told very well. I mean, how because Apple dominates your Apple and other technology companies that kind of dominate the airspace of news and stuff like that, and y'all are much quieter in many respects. But that may be the secret to your.
Well, and I've
Oh,
wondered about that over the years.
so
And there are a lot of employees that are like, geez, why do Apple and Google and so on get all this credit? I'm like, it's easier for people to understand consumer products. Their businesses sell to consumers. So it's the people who read those news stories and the news outlets that talk to the mainstream talk a lot more about things that will resonate with people, like what they could buy. Uh, Microsoft has never, uh, our strength is in the enterprise. That's the vast majority of our revenue. We have some stuff in the consumer space, of course, uh, but that's never been the dominant part of our
Right.
business. And the fact that those things are smaller can, you know, can often get looked at in a certain light. That's not always flattering. But it's never been the intention that we become that consumer business is what dominates our P&L.
You're in a
At
much more,
least that's how I look at
yeah,
it. Yeah.
I think that makes sense. It definitely makes sense. Um, I have so many more questions. You got time?
I have time. Yeah.
Uh, we've been here an hour, and if we go another 15 minutes or so, I can splice this into two parts, and I think that would be really good. So let me ask you, sort of projecting forward in I feel like we work for Microsoft, so I need to ask you about things like AI, things like
Sure.
other things that have to do with the future of technology and in relationship to people, that sort of thing. So so um,
Sure.
so let's start with talk about AI. What is how does I guess what I'm really interested in, how does Microsoft differentiate itself on the AI front from other companies that are doing AI work? Or do they?
Sure.
Is that a good
Sure.
question? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, I'll give you my lens on it. It's not the official Microsoft lens. Uh, I don't work in the AI marketing department. That's not what I do.
Right.
Um, but but I'm involved enough that the lens that I see on it is it's not about AI doing all the work and doing everything for you. Like there's a reason we named our product Copilot.
Mm.
It's it's not the pilot. You are, but it's made to help you do it better, and that's intentional. So I think of it as like human raised to the power of AI. So how can you exponentiate that human with AI? And so our company's mission statement, and I'll say I really love that the company did this, which is they put it on all of our like employee badges. You can see I've had mine a while, but
Yeah.
uh, but it's to empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And they, we view AI as helping people and organizations achieve more with it, and it being one of the strongest leverageable technologies for it. At least that's how I look at Microsoft's position and how we talk about it all the time internally, which is how do we use AI to help people get more done? Get more done, live more of their lives, achieve more in whatever that means for them.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's different than what I hear from other companies that do AI, where
Uh,
the prediction is that, they're taking over the world. And I don't think that's what you're saying.
right. Yeah. Like, if you look at the names of everything else, nothing else is saying that the AI is the co-pilot to you, right? Or even a similar metaphor.
Well, I have this, I mean, I'm in constant confrontation with people who are deep into doing AI stuff. They're using all these different programs.
Yep.
And I'm not using all these different programs because I live in the gaps between things. The gap between, say, literature and physics. You can ask a question about physics, yeah, and we can ask a question about literature, yeah, but where do they connect? Who is connecting there? And a friend of mine, you took my circle of impact model and asked one of the programs to apply it to his work, and he sent me the outcome, and I was really surprised about how little that AI program had been able to identify the stuff that I had created, you know. And I mean, it missed probably 300,000 words that I had written, and you know, probably 500,000 words that I had written over the last 10 years. And why is it missing that? Well, it's the prompt that I guess you're asking. But so I feel like, so correct me if I feel like we're at the birth of something, and it's yet not reached maturity.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
and and so to treat it as if it's a mature product at this point is kind of a mistaken thing.
No, and it's not. And what where everybody's at is everybody feels like there's this kind of like Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross moment right now.
Yeah.
And uh and nobody wants to be in third place and get fired. So uh people don't want the steak knives either, right? So they're going for the Cadillac Eldorado and they feel like there is this speed race. And how organizations work and organize are changing completely because everybody feels like whoever figures out how to crack this uh, is going to take all. And if you're in third place, you're out of that your business is gone, and all the people you take care of are are out of business as well. Like this is people feel that this is existential. It's like
It is.
sink or swim. So people are trying whatever it takes to win. And there's this theory that uh, that as soon as you create, whoever manages the first create the AI system that could train the next better AI system. Whoever figures out how to do that first is going to win because it will start making itself so much faster that nobody will be able to keep up. So everybody's on the race to figure out how do I win that and how do I win what is the right user interface, user experience with AI? Because people like it's a race. Whoever gets there first or second, that's it.
Well, it sounds like the theories that the VC guys in Silicon Valley who who talk about category design. Are you familiar with them? They say that if you
A bit, a bit.
you create a new category, and you can count on owning about 85% of the market. Everybody
Yeah,
else who wants to enter your category is always going to be paying catch up. And um, I was working from that mindset, 7 or 8 years ago. As I was in a startup mode for reinventing my business life, and I found it very difficult to apply that theory. Um, uh, and I realized that what they're really are talking about is tech stuff, and that's exactly what you're talking about there. That
yeah. And I don't even know if everybody believes it. Uh, it's sort of like people who don't quite believe in God, but they're good anyway, just just in case,
Yeah,
for
cultural conversion.
for
Yeah.
the after right. Like so, it's a bit of hedging. Like don't know if people believe it, but if in case it proves to be true, they don't want to have missed it. Uh, you know, I I take the point of view that and this is my personal point of view. It's, it's not speaking for Microsoft. Like I take the point of view that there's always ways to compete in well, what the Samsung folks taught us, like blue ocean space, right? Like with their Project Bordeaux, where they went away from televisions that were technologically astounding as the primary differentiator, and they went to technology that better fit in your living room, right? Like that was more like furniture and fit in your life. Like so I love that strategy, and making AI technology that better fits in your life, and all technology will be AI technology to some point, that fits in your life. Like I think that's great. I think there's room for a lot more people. Um,
Yeah,
and
I agree. I agree with that. And um, I, you know, I keep going back to Everett Rogers' innovate
yeah, diffusion.
of innovations thing.
Yeah, the technology adoption curve. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, mhm,
From
yeah.
his diffusion
And
of innovation paper? Yeah.
And the assumption is that if you're you're at the beginning, you're the startup, that's where the real success will be. But it seemed like it was if you're an early adopter, you can do it. But it seemed like it was the people who understood the next layer, the where the mass adoption came from, that they were the ones who really succeeded well, because you can be a good startup but not be a good scaler.
I mean, true. And to your point, you could even be a good scaler and still not be the one that wins. Like Google
Yeah.
was not the first, did not build the first search engine, right? Like
Right.
Larry Page didn't do it. Like there was, Lycos and Alta Vista and like so many other things. Uh,
So what's
and
the answer then if if it's not the firstest or the mostest, what is the answer? Is it um being persistent, keep changing?
I think that's the part of it that's reading it. But the other Silicon Valley term that's really big is product market fit, which is you you have to be willing to keep refitting to the market as the market changes. And so let's go back to Everett Rogers, right? When you meet the late majority, they might need a different solution than the early majority did.
Absolutely.
And
Yes,
and even at the part that you hit the late majority, there's still half the market left.
that's right.
Uh, and then another thing that a lot of innovators I know focus on is what was really popular just before AI was, hey, let's look at industries that have very high retention but low satisfaction, because those are ripe for disruption.
Hmm. Say more about that. That's intriguing.
Okay, so if you have an incumbent in the space that's been doing something the same way forever, like let's say the hospitality industry, and you have, we had Starwood and Marriott's and West and Hyatt's and all of that, right? Airbnb came along, realized, hey, there was pretty pretty high retention here. People are doing these things, but lower satisfaction. Like people didn't always want the prices, or they wanted living that was more, you know, maybe closer to couch surfing, or more like you have your own house. And they came in and totally disrupted that by offering up a solution that could have higher satisfaction. Uh, and there are tons of things like that, like taxis. They were, Uber disrupted it with a very similar model, Uber and Lyft at the same time, but that was an industry that already existed that had high retention but low satisfaction. And there was room to come in and make a more satisfactory, lower cost option that dealt more people in.
I live in that world, because I travel. That I would think that the airlines are a place that's ready for some disruption.
I think so too. And some attempts have been made at that with some of the offerings, like unbundling all the amenities, like which was the the Spirit and Southwest approach. Uh, but there's probably room for more disruption. I've heard some theories like, what if you made the flights free, but you advertised to people the whole time they were in their seats, and charged a ton for that. Uh, we're not at a world where everybody has their own float plane that that you can sort of do the uh
Well,
sharing model with, but
I was asked recently, what if you could plan your life, what would you like? I said, well, I'd like my own jet so I could go anywhere I wanted to. I said, well, that's expensive. I said, well, yeah, but I still would like that.
but you said I could design my own life, so
Yeah, I'd like to
you
go
gave
get
me
on
no
the
constraints before.
jet and fly to London this afternoon. You go there for the weekend. You know, it's yeah. I think that so let me what I see. Let me put. I think what you're pointing to is really happening. A lot of that is happening, and I wonder if that's also now happening within the political sphere. That it was ripe for disruption, and President Trump is really the disruptor. He's the disruptor in chief. Whether you like him or not, that's what he's doing. And it's, when his term is up, it's going to be a different world as a result.
Yeah,
Whether you like that or not, I mean, you live with what you're given. You live with what you're,
yeah,
and
yeah. I'll give you for sure. He's a disruptor. He's disrupted how campaigns are run. He's disrupted what you can say in office. He's disrupted like the morality of the position, like so many things. How you could use the powers at your hand, how you could use a combination of the actual power you have and the media to do things like uh, for sure. It's going to be different, and actually, it caught both parties unaware. Um,
yeah, that's
both, yeah.
and what's happened is the effect of that disruption is it's divided both parties into factions within those parties. Then, so we'll see competition within the parties to see what the party will be in another 18 months. I mean, it's to me, it's really fascinating, and I'm apolitical in that regard. So I'm very non-aligned, but I watch this and I'm thinking this is really fascinating, and the time. I mean, I'm much older than you, but I've been watching this since President Kennedy's assassination. That's when and I was only 10 at that time, but I knew then that the world had changed. I didn't have a way of articulating that, but I knew that from that point on, the world was going to be different, and it really has been. And the system that was kind of put in place in the 60s is now being disrupted. And the question is, what's the next 50 years going to look like, 60 years going to look like? And I don't think anyone knows. And I don't even think Trump is responsible for that. I don't think he can even predict what that is. So it's going to be interesting. And so that it comes back to a large extent, large businesses like yours, um, have a say so in this because I mean, you have such a connection to so many people and businesses. You have your how you perform your work, how you perform your business has an influence upon how people view the world. And what you're telling me has given me a whole different view of Microsoft, which, granted, I have Microsoft equipment, but I don't have an opinion about Microsoft because what I have is 15 years old, you know? So
Mm.
here's my last question for you. Where do you see the world of where do you see society going in terms of how technology influences it? And 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 in that context, are you hopeful about the future?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely hopeful about the future. I'm an optimist by nature. Uh, where do I see it going? All right. I'll share a concept I really believe in. It's called wise technology. So technology that whereas AI and a lot of technology augments human productivity or augments human intelligence. Uh, I think more and more we're going to see technology that helps augment human wisdom.
Hmm.
And we already saw we've already seen an early movement toward this, like with apps uh, like meditation apps like Calm and Insight Timer, Headspace, and so on that can basically assist people in ancient practices of mindfulness and meditation. Um, we see it being used more in health uh, and in helping people not just react to unhealthy situations, but be proactive about health situations, which the health industry had never really cared about before because insurance wasn't in that. But we're seeing that change. So I've taken on this operating definition of wisdom as uh, insights on how to optimize for the well-being of yourself, others, and the planet. And once you start seeing technology is very good at optimizing and helping people optimize. So once we start seeing this, I think we will eventually see a movement beyond that that optimizing of human intelligence, and we've already seen quite a large market for it. We see another inflection coming in, like another wave coming in of people really caring about their well-being and having time to invest in that and longevity. We see a rise of influencers like the Hubermans of the world and so on who are are giving us a lot more science in that regard. What has been a gap for a while is understanding what is the business model of of helping with mental well-being, and especially in when you're looking at chronically healthy states of people,
Mhm.
uh, right? Like acutely unhealthy or create acute moments of health, or even chronically unhealthy people have targeted, but uh, people haven't been sure that there has been a sustainable business model uh, around around more emotional health at the kind of scale that moves the stock market. Uh, but I think we're going to start seeing that, and we're seeing more and more in generations. Um, Sort of as the world collapses and communication and information collapses into smaller, people being aware of the wisdom of all these other cultures and people wanting to live wiser lives. And I believe technology is going to follow suit.
Do you see your hackathon addressing this sort of
There
well?
are many projects that come up in the hackathon that are about optimizing for human well-being, well-being of the planet. Uh,
And what do you, I mean, if you, I mean, I'm looking at how social media has kind of taken over like education and children and how they do you see it having an effect in changing the way um, younger people interface with technology so that it's healthier for them than it has seems to be at this point?
go- Gosh, yes and no at the same time. There's definitely desire to do that by many people, and at the same time, people need to, we're going to see people either need to make an approach and be willing to let go of some profits, or figure out a way to profit from it. Because right now, I mean, frankly, I believe technology often does the opposite of wise technology. And in fact, social media, this was something I railed against a little over a decade ago, leading to these three ills of driving: distraction, isolation, and sedentary living. Uh, and so as it encourages that, because it's actually using behavioral science and what it knows about human nature to hijack, right? Like in the worst sense, right? Like for corporate profit, it's like hijacking these mechanisms in people for attention and
Yeah.
so on.
Yeah.
Uh, the person who invented the infinite scroll, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he laments it and is, moved out of social media and speaks out publicly uh, against things like this. So I, having children of my own, I've got two, I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and gosh, sugar and screens are the are the toughest challenges uh, with
Yeah.
them. So I see that. At the same time, I see more and more of the content that's working on them. So about a month and a half ago, I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop boycotting the technology. I'm going to stop boycotting social media and learn to use it well. So I've taken a course. I'm not necessarily good at it, but I'm putting out 1 to 3 pieces of content every day about empowerment messages, which it's hard to find my audience on Instagram, but I'm in this cohort of other people who are actually really sensitive and thoughtful about adding value to the people in the world who consume the material. So I'm seeing more and more like thoughtfulness and wise material coming out from the creators on the platform, and there being a larger and larger market for that. So I'm hoping that more and more of the businesses make decisions that are better for humanity. And I hope that we could eventually make business cases that that do lead to the optimization of human well-being. And the reason I have a point of view on this is I actually wrote a book on this that I never published over a decade ago. And at the time I realized I didn't know how to make the business case for it. Like so I made a book on why to create wise technology and how to create it. But I couldn't crack the why from a business model point of view at that time. And so part of why I forged the role I forged in the garage that I did was I wanted to learn how to make business cases uh, inside of companies and outside of business companies. And I wanted to explore how can I help people who want to make wiser technology sell this to investors and sponsors.
I'm with you. And as someone who has been engaged with social media and, you know, podcasting and substacking and all of this for some time, I see all of this and I see the challenge of algorithms and numbers as opposed to relationships and conversation and it's not one or the other. But it's always in conflict for me, and I don't have an answer to it other than I keep doing things. I keep the process going because at some point the whole ethos will change and where what I have brought to the world will have a resonance that people that don't know about me will find and that's kind of my I have a person I've hired who has said you have too much content. You created too much content. And I said, no, I haven't. I just created content, and it's out there for people to access. And but they're thinking of content as what is available right this minute, and what is and it is showing up on the algorithm right this minute, and when I'm looking at what I've created, it's like I'm creating a resource bank, a library that is always there to be accessed. And when you have a question, I have to figure out a way to characterize this in the marketplace where people see, oh, I can go to Ed's thing and find this kind of information rather than everything being like uh, today's diary. This is my diary contribution for today, because that's kind of the scrolling mindset. And what I'm doing is I feel like I'm creating a I don't know what the right word is. I'm lost for word, but something that exists out there that will always be there for people, that will be beneficial to them if they go searching for it. And how do they know to search for it? Well, you keep talking with them. You keep, um, and I've had a lot of people almost every day, someone writes me and says, your YouTube thing is not producing. I said, I know that, but you wouldn't, the conversations that I have with people, because of what's there, it makes it worthwhile. So the impact of the content becomes something that needs to have a measure that I don't have a way of measuring. Um, so I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I'm an innovator in that regard, but I'm trying to do something which is more consistent with who I am as a person, as a content creator, because I'm more interested in the people than I am interested in my own numbers.
Yeah, there you touched on a few points of view here. Like one is you're not, it sounds like you're not trying to create content with the largest possible spread because people fear there's like a lowest common
Right.
denominator quality to that, right? Uh, you're doing what in the social media industry is referred to as niching down, right? Like make content that when the right people find it, it's just the perfect content for them. And then that helps them, but it also creates the relationship between you and them. Like that they'll find you and reach out. Um,
It's really built around the idea of networks.
yeah.
So someone knows of, Rex knows you and Rex knows me. So he's connected us together. Well, that could be
Yep.
the same with, well, Rex watched a video and he says, oh, I think Ed needs to see that, either one of us. And so he sends it to you because that connection matters, that network connection matters. And then you take that and you send that to someone else because I think they'll find this interesting. And that sort of network mindset is the way I operate. And um, and and I see that operating as the principle of networks through introductions, or networks through sharing, rather than
Yeah.
networks that are simply collecting people in your Rolodex or in your contact list. So we're I think everything is at this point of disruption. Let me put it that way. Everything is open to disruption now, and and the more we embrace that as a good thing, the more likely it is we will find a way to disrupt in a positive and constructive way that builds relationships, builds community, and is able that allows us to solve the problems that we are facing in society, which are huge.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of shifts happen. I feel like the entire world, like markets are breathing like an accordion in and out, right? Like it could compress and like reconnect elsewhere. Um, it's you know, all the humans on this planet are like cells that are finding new ways to communicate with each other.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. All those. all those different metaphors for what's happening are really, I think, really helpful. Well, I'm glad to know you, and I'm really glad that we've had this time together. And
Likewise.
I feel like we've scratched the surface of some things, and maybe we'll have another conversation down the road. And um, you're, I think what you have to offer is really helpful. And I'd like to learn more about hacking or being a hacker, because that
Yeah.
appeals to me. I mean, that's a disruptive, and in the world that I live in, it's all very staid and traditional and kind of fixed in place. And, you got to have to kind of scale the walls and open the door and let some sunlight in and see what happens.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed the conversation as well, and I look forward to future ones. And uh, I'd love to, when my book comes out next spring, I'd love to know what you think about it.
Well, we'll have you back on and we'll talk about it.
That sounds great. I love it.
I'm not big on promotion, but I'm big on people who I have encountered that I really am impressed with and want to support. And that's a way to support you is when your book comes out. And because most of the people I meet are not in this disruptive world, and they need what you have to offer. They really do. And I'm just one voice, and I'm not really the voice that sells it well enough. I have other things that I sell better. So let's talk about that when the time comes.
All right. Well, that sounds awesome. I appreciate that. I see it as well that it needs to help people, and that's why, you know, people don't write books because they're trying to get rich.
That is really true. That is really true. But
All right. Thank you.
I want to thank you for watching, sticking through to the end of this two-part conversation that I have with Ed Essey. I hope this inspires you to think more clearly about your own way of approaching innovation. I know that it's something that we think of as something that businesses do, but I also believe that it's something that human beings do. That you and I can be innovative in the way we conduct ourselves in our work and in our private lives. So I hope this has been an interesting thing for you, and would just request that you hit the like button and also subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as to my Substack, where you also get a version of each and every one of the Eddie Network episodes. And I thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time here. Bye bye.